So what I've done with the book of Revelation is I've taken the book and I've created a template. And this template is an order of events, of things that are going to happen. There's day counts between certain events. There's time frames that are attached to, for instance, the length of time that the two witnesses lie dead in the streets of Jerusalem. That's 3.5 days. We know that the beast is going to reign for 42 months. We know that that will be toward the end, after the abomination of desolation happens, which in the book of Revelation is actually the sixth trumpet, second woe. That's when the woman flees into the wilderness. And so what I've done is I've taken the visions of Revelation and I've inserted them into a timeline, into a template. And what I do then is I kind of work the timeline backward from a second coming of Christ, which we know will be 1,260 days after the abomination of desolation. Christ's second coming is not unknown, okay? His second coming is on a known date. It will be 1,260 days after the abomination of desolation. And if he comes back on a feast day, the most logical feast for him to return on is the Day of Atonement. So if we were to take the Day of Atonement in some year, subtract 1,260 days, we would arrive at the date of the sixth trumpet, which is the abomination of desolation. And if there is a 2028 second coming of Christ on the Day of Atonement, then this is 1,260 days before the second coming. All right, so what I have is a template, and basically this template works for any group of years. So if we were looking for a 2027 second coming of Christ, we would have had to have a rapture of the male child in 2023. So this is a template, and so the order of events doesn't change. The order of events stays the same, and we can actually attach dates for the different events, and we just keep moving the template out as needed. So, the rapture didn't happen in 2023, so we just take the whole template and we move it over a year, which then would put a rapture in 2024 in the fall and a second coming of Christ in 2028. If for some reason that doesn't happen, it doesn't mean my template is wrong. It just means we're going to shift it over one more year. So I just want people to understand that what I'm doing here is not just throwing out random date predictions. I'm actually taking the whole book of Revelation, putting it in a timeline, and then you just fill in the dates for the timeline. So if a date passes, you just take the whole timeline and move it over a year. So right now, I'm looking at a 2024 rapture. Does that mean that I am predicting that it must happen? No, I'm not predicting that it must happen. I am just using the next available window of time for our rapture, and then that would make a 2028 second coming of Christ. So if you're not familiar with my channel or how I do all this stuff, you can watch some of my other videos, and I really encourage you to download the timeline template. I have a large print version that's 28 pages. 14 of those pages create the timeline, and 14 pages are explanation for the timeline. So basically you have a timeline on the front, and then on the back you could put the explanation for the timeline. So today what I want to look at are the dates that I'm kind of expecting things to happen this fall in 2024. So before we actually get into this, I want you to click that subscribe button, and if you're interested in being notified when I do videos, be sure and click the bell. And if you do that and I put up a live stream, sort of impromptu, you'll be notified that I'm about to do that. Let's get into what the timeline would look like for 2024 rapture. And I have two versions of the timeline. So let's take a look at them. First of all, like I said, we're looking at an abomination of desolation on April 19th, 2025. okay, for a 2028 second coming of Christ and a 2024 rapture. So we know that the first rapture is not signless. There is a sign. This is going to be the war in Israel. And as far as I know, I'm the only person who said that there must be a war in Israel before our rapture. And when Israel went to war on October 7th of last year, that to me was really amazing. It was on the 8th day of Tabernacles. I was hoping would be the war that would get us raptured, but we've got a year of birth pangs leading up to what will be the war that we're looking at. Israel is the woman of Revelation 12, is in travail, okay? And this is when she's going to be, I think, invaded in the Gog-Magog invasion, but it could be something else. In any case, it is going to be a huge, gigantic war, and Israel will be all alone. This will only last a short while, and then the war will be over, and that's when the male child is going to be born. Now, that's us. That's believers who are faithfully following the Lord. We will be changed from mortal to immortal. That's what our birth is all about. It's the change from mortality to immortality in the twinkling of an eye. The rapture is not in a twinkling of an eye. The change from mortal to immortal is in the twinkling of an eye. And while we're being changed here on earth, the dead in Christ at the very same moment are receiving their immortal bodies in heaven. Remember, our immortal bodies are not going to be made of the dust of the ground. We are not going to have earth suits. We're going to have heavenly bodies after the man of heaven. So those bodies are actually being kept in heaven for us. No dead believer in Christ will have to come to the earth and get an earth suit. Their resurrection bodies will not be from this cursed ground. It will be from the celestial stardust of heaven. Okay, so we'll be changed. That's the birth of the male child. And every male child has 8 days before it's presented to God. Okay, that's the rule in the Old Testament. So we're going to have this 8-day period of time during which actually the dragon is going to try to devour the child. It's going to try to devour it, but that is not going to happen. On the 8th day, the child will be presented to God. The male child will be caught up. That's the rapture. And it's possible that we could be changed on the first day of Tabernacles and raptured on the 8th day. The first day of Tabernacles is October 16th, 2024, and the 8th day is on October 24th. Interesting number, 24, and there's 24 elders. And once the male child is caught up into heaven, then this child appears as the 24 elders in heaven. All right. Now, it's really important for people to understand the book of Revelation. It's not interpreted chronologically. In fact, Revelation chapter 1, we first were shown how to interpret Revelation when the Bible tells us that John was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. Being in the Spirit is actually an Old Testament reference back to Ezekiel. What did it mean when Ezekiel was in the Spirit? Well, it meant that he was a time traveler, that he was going to be taken from one place to another, from one time period to another. Time and space did not matter anymore. And that's exactly the meaning for John being in the Spirit on the Lord's day. He was shown basically between what we would refer to as the Revelation 12 sign on into the new heavens and the new earth. New Jerusalem coming down. He saw the harlot riding a beast in the wilderness. He was taken up into heaven. He was moved from place to place. He saw all these things happen. So the book of Revelation is not chronological. Things happen sequentially. They'll happen in a certain order, but that does not mean that every vision that we read is actually going to take place in the order that we see it in Revelation. John was told to put it in this order, but that doesn't mean it's chronological. Just like being in the Spirit for Ezekiel, it didn't mean that we were seeing a chronological play of events that took place at the time of the Babylonian captivity. And actually, Ezekiel saw things all the way into the future, the regathering of the dry bones of Israel, the Gog-Magog war, and even the millennial temple. So this is a very similar thing to what's happening to John in the book of Revelation. So the outline for the book is not for John to write what he saw, the things that are and the things that will be, as in he was writing something like the Christmas Carol, the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, the ghost of Christmas future. That is not the outline for Revelation. There is no outline like that. We are to interpret the book in another way. There are two kinds of information in Revelation. One is kind of a storyline that we follow, and the other one is a list of events that take place, and they're just a list. They'll take place in the order that we see these things, but they do not tell us when they are going to happen in relation to other events in Revelation. In other words, we have we have 7 seals in Revelation. They're going to happen in the order that they're given, but just because they happen in this sequence doesn't mean that we know when on a timeline they're going to happen. We'll have to look for other information in the book in order to know that. So the storyline for the 24 elders actually begins in Revelation 4, where we see them before God's throne. Revelation 5, we see them seated. We see Christ sending out the Spirit of God to all the earth, and then we see him taking the scroll. And there are 4 seals that will take place on that same day that we're raptured. 4 seals will be broken. The first 4 riders on the horse, the horsemen of Revelation chapter 6. And the story then continues in Revelation chapter 8, where we see the angel taking the prayers from the elders that we saw in Revelation 5, placing them on the altar, and then there's an earthquake on the earth, and trumpets 1 through 4 take place. And this is all on the same day that we're caught up. Okay? And if we're looking for this scenario where we're changed on the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles and caught up on the 8th day, then October 16th would be our change, and our rapture would be on October 24th. Now, there is an alternative timeline to this, okay? And I'm going to give you this alternative, which didn't occur to me until last fall when I'm looking at Revelation, and I see the 5th trumpet. It's in Revelation chapter 9, where God tells the entities who are going to be coming out of the pit that they can't harm the earth or the sea or the trees. Now we know the first 4 trumpet angels, that's what they do. They sound the trumpet, and then these things happen where 1/3 of the earth's waters destroyed, 1/3 of the green grass, 1/3 of the seas turn to blood, and 1/3 of the light from the sun, moon, and stars is removed. And then we see the 5th trumpet, and they're being told that they can't harm anything, but that the occupants of the pit who come out have the power to sting anyone who doesn't have the seal of God for 5 months. Okay, so it's possible that the 5th trumpet could also be on this same day. Now, we know when the 5th trumpet is going to blow. It's 5 months before the 6th trumpet, okay? Because the 5th trumpet is the first woe, the 6th trumpet is the second woe. And the second woe only lasts an hour, okay? It's 1 hour. It's that hour, day, month, and year that's been predetermined by God. It's in a single hour on a day. So this is the second woe. And the first woe, which is the 5th trumpet, I know this is all kind of confusing, but the 5th trumpet has to be over before the 6th trumpet can start. So the first woe has to be over before the second woe can begin. And then the second woe is over on the same day that it starts, because it's only an hour on a single day. So if we subtract 150 days or 5 months, we end up on November 20th of 2024. Okay, this is the fifth trumpet. Now here's where it gets a little tricky, and I don't know which way this goes. Okay, I don't know which way this will fall, but we know that there's a delay. There's a delay about the trumpet sounding. And what that could mean is that everything gets pushed out so that our change does not happen over the Feast of Tabernacles, but it will happen sometime in this window of time here, basically from October 16th until November 12th. Now, you're asking me what's the deal with November 12th? Well, if our rapture gets shifted over to the fifth trumpet, and let me just draw that out for you. So if you want to screenshot this now, go ahead and do this now. All right, so this is what the timeline would look like if we have a delay in progress and the fifth trumpet comes immediately after the fourth trumpet. Okay, so this is what it would look like. The war may start during the Feast of Tabernacles, okay? Anytime between October 16th and the 24th. It could even start, just a little bit prior to November 12th. The latest that our change from mortal to immortal could take place then would be November 12th, because the rapture would be 8 days later on November 20th. And if the fifth trumpet is connected to trumpets 1 through 4, and they all happen on the same day, trumpets 1 through 5, that would be November 20th, 150 days or 5 months before the sixth trumpet begins. If that's the case, our rapture then would be November 20th at the latest. It could be before that. And our change, the latest that could be, is November 12th. So all of these dates are plus or minus 24 hours. This is how it would look if we had a delay in progress, okay? And Revelation 10 does tell us that there is a delay. And Revelation 7 says the angel from the rising sun, who is Christ, who has the signet ring, has the seal of the living God, tells the 4 angels in heaven who have the power to harm the earth and the sea and the trees not to do that until the 144,000 have been sealed, until we have sealed the servants of our God on their forehead. Once this group has been sealed, basically we're passing off the baton to this other group, okay? Us as believers who are firstborn, who are going to be going with Christ into heaven, are now passing off the ministry to this group of Jewish believers or Israeli believers, people who are descendants of Abraham. God knows who they are. They're both men and women, because remember, in God's economy, in the heavenly scenario, there are no daughters. God only has sons. Right? He has firstborn sons and he has other sons, the remnant of her seed, the other offspring. The woman has other offspring, but they're all sons. That's how God views people. So the 144,000 of Israel, even though they're firstborn, they're first fruits to God, doesn't mean they're only men. They're men and women, because all women are also sons. All right. So what we have here then is a change from mortal to immortal, late date for November 12th, and the date for the rapture, late date, would be November 20th, 2024. And that's if our rapture is this fall, and the second coming of Christ then would be in 2028. So obviously, if the war in Israel doesn't happen the way we think it'll happen, where she's basically being invaded and all alone and about ready to be destroyed, and our change doesn't happen, obviously our rapture isn't going to happen. And so if this doesn't happen this fall, we move the whole template into next year and just put the dates for the feasts and for Christ's second coming and all of that for the next year over. I give this year a strong possibility because of all the events that I see in the world. And right now, everybody's talking nuclear war, moving nukes here and there, nuking each other. It's just crazy talk. And we're in the beginnings of what will be known as World War III. And the destruction of the harlot, basically what I'm considering Western or NATO countries, could be expected to be April 19th and 20th of 2025, which is next year. And this would be when a third of mankind dies by fire, smoke, and sulfur. Okay. By that 200 million creature, man, whatever it is, army, and by the beast and the 10 kings who hate the harlot and destroy her with fire right here. This is one of the big events that takes place in Revelation. It's the destruction of the present world system so that the beast system can operate all alone. The eighth king does not have the harlot in riding on him anymore. Okay, the harlot only sits on 7 kings, not on 8. So when the beast dies and is resurrected, the harlot will be destroyed. This present world system will be destroyed, and the beast will begin his kingdom and a 42-month reign. These are the 2 options that I have out there for this year. And so we could either have a change on October 16th with a rapture on October 24th, or this whole window of time could shift over where our rapture would happen on the day of the 5th trumpet. Trumpets 1 through 5 would then happen on the same day, and we'd have to count back 8 days to find out when our change is from mortal to immortal, which the late date for that is November 12th of 2024. So those are the dates for the template for a second coming of Christ in 2028 and a rapture in 2024. All right, so I hope this has kind of cleared things up. Remember, the Bible does talk about a delay. And so this delay is in this window of time, basically from October 16th to November 20th is the window of time that we're sort of looking at for our change and rapture. So leave a comment in the comment section, and we'll see you on another video. Till then, have a blessed day.